Some videos feel wrong the moment they start, showing something more than reality allows. Dark, ominous, and terrifying. These disturbing recordings demand explanation. Because once captured, they shouldn't be ignored.
See, no.
A security camera at a funeral home caught a moment of pure terror that is currently circulating as some of the most unsettling footage ever recorded. The woman was cleaning the coffin. Things were all okay. She turned back to get something, and there you go! The heavy lid of the coffin suddenly jerked upward, and a pale, human-like hand emerged. Not only this, it was holding the edge of the wood with incredible strength. How can a deceased person do this? The woman, terrified, ran, and the video ended. Paranormal researchers say this wasn't just a ghost. It was a physical force born from the raw emotions of a soul refusing to leave this world. And what the camera didn't catch could be even more shocking. Moving feet. Late at night, a nurse was working in the morgue, noting down details of a body that had just passed. Suddenly, she thought she saw the feet move. At first, she blamed her tired eyes and assumed it was a misunderstanding. But when she later reviewed the security footage, it became clear that the feet had actually shifted on their own. After this, the late-night staff took extra precautions whenever entering the morgue. Will you go on duty like this? Well, I won't. Final walk. A man was seen walking slowly down the hospital hallway. At first, it looked completely normal. Patients walk there all the time. But the nurse's reaction said otherwise. She saw him, froze, then screamed and ran. Sounds strange, right? But here's the darker truth. That man had already passed away a few hours earlier. His file was signed. His bed was empty, yet somehow, the CCTV showed him taking one last walk through the place where he took his final breath. After that, everyone who watched the footage said the hospital never felt the same again. Specter monitor.
Look at that. It's a perfect, plus 2. What is that?
A couple of nurses were on a late-night shift when they entered a room that should have been empty. To their shock, the heart monitor was beeping steadily, as if connected to a patient, but the room was vacant. As they checked, they realized the monitor was completely unplugged. Suddenly, the steady heartbeat seemed to respond to them when they jokingly asked it to speed up. If you are a ghost, boom, it did.
If you are a ghost.
From that day on, this moment became one of the hospital's most talked about paranormal stories. If you were in their place, watching a heartbeat rise on an unplugged monitor, what would you do? Haunted wheelchair.
No.
During a late-night shift, a security guard was filming inside the hospital when something impossible happened. A wheelchair began moving on its own. At first, he froze, unsure if his eyes were playing tricks. But then shock took over, and he ran as fast as he could. The footage ended abruptly, leaving viewers on edge. Some suggested air pressure or a mechanical glitch, but others felt the hospital itself held a heavy, restless energy where suffering never truly fades. That night, the guard wasn't alone. Something unseen seemed to be watching him as he fled. Crying nun. A paranormal investigator visited an old abandoned church he had read about online. It was in a quiet town and had been empty for many years, so the whole place felt cold and forgotten. When he stepped inside and walked toward the baptism spot to take a closer look, that's when it happened. He heard a soft crying sound, like a woman sobbing somewhere in the church. When he turned around, he froze. A gray, creepy woman was sitting in the pews, still and silent, just watching him. He left the place, scared and horrified, running for his life.
Oh my God!
sacred scream.
Y con tu espíritu.
During a normal church service, a priest started reciting verses from the Bible when terrifying screams suddenly echoed through the microphone. It wasn't him, and it wasn't the choir. It came from somewhere else. The children around the priest looked around in confusion. There was no person, just a sound. That thing only hinted at one idea. The scream belonged to a dark force disturbed by the service. That night, everyone realized that some forces might sense the sacred, and not all of them welcome it.
El Señor esté con ustedes.
Weeping Madonna.
And sometimes she cries tears of oil.
On the Mexican border, in Hobbs, people were attending Mass at Our Lady of Guadalupe Church. Suddenly, the statue of the Virgin Mary began to cry. Real tears rolled down her face, and people recorded it on their phones. The church called experts to see what caused it. They checked for pipes, tricks, and leaks. Nothing was found.
There is no leaky pipe either below or above or inside or around the statue. It's completely a standalone statue.
The statue was made of bronze, so it could not hold water. Even condensation was ruled out. When the liquid was tested, things became even more mysterious. It wasn't water, it was olive oil.
But the liquid's been tested, and it turns out it's not water, it's olive oil. So that makes this even weirder.
The church had not declared it a miracle, but there was no clear answer. Maybe it was a sign or something truly supernatural. Ritual terror. What was meant to drive evil away only made the moment more terrifying. During an exorcism ritual, the priest prayed over a woman who was believed to be possessed. All at once, she changed. Her face grew tense, and she began climbing the walls like a spider. She was aggressive and impossible to control. People watched in fear as the room felt like a battle between prayer and a dark force that refused to leave. In the end, the priest managed to calm the ritual, and the woman was later rescued. Today, she is healthy and living a normal life, free from the possession that once gripped her. Morgue Awakening. In 2025, a man working the night shift at a morgue was working on a computer when something impossible happened. One of the bodies on a stretcher slowly moved, then sat upright. Fear took over, and he ran. Moments later, the footage showed the body lying flat again, perfectly still, as if nothing had ever happened. But the story didn't end there. Days later, another worker reported the same thing. Same room and same unnatural movement. The video went viral. Some believe the soul was trapped between life and the afterlife. Well, a darker theory suggests a ghost was using the body, testing its limits before slipping away. Whatever it was, the cameras caught it. And now, no one stays in that room after dark. Gravehopper. A street CCTV near a cemetery recorded something strange late at night. A white figure was seen hopping across the road, wrapped tightly in burial cloth. When people watched the footage, one thought kept coming up. It looked like a buried body had come alive in its final dress. The next morning, locals went to check the cemetery. One grave was open, and the body inside was gone. Now everything people had guessed suddenly made sense. And from that night on, no one liked passing that road again. Pale Watcher. What this security camera captured is hard to explain. A man lay asleep in his bed, quiet and still. Then, a faint white shadow began to rise from his body. It moved slowly, floating upward with a strange calm. No one else was in the room, and nothing could have caused it. The shadow drifted for a few moments before disappearing completely. The moment was special. You know why? Well, it was his soul leaving this world. The movement was gentle, almost peaceful, before it vanished completely. This incident really scares and gives peace at the same time. Twin Rise. This CCTV footage from a morgue made people uneasy the moment it came out. The room looked still, with bodies resting on stretchers. Then, without anyone near them, one stretcher rolled a few inches across the floor. A second later, the other stretcher moved as well. What happened next was even stranger. Both bodies slowly sat up and raised their hands toward each other, as if responding to something in the room. It did not look like a simple body reflex. The movement suggested mischievous spirits were at play inside the morgue that night. Since then, staff have stayed extra careful during late shifts. Ghost Child. In Pakistan, a hospital's CCTV captured a strange moment that left everyone unsettled. A child appeared to be standing next to a patient's bed, but when an attendant walked by, the real fear came. He passed right through the child. It wasn't a living boy, but a dark, shadowy figure. Some whispered it looked like a grim reaper in child form, sent to take the patient's soul. But the truth was different. Hospital staff immediately realized it was a boy who had passed away just a day earlier. Seeing it like this, it looked like his soul was trapped in the room. Later, the family recited prayers for his peace, and after that, the ghostly child was never seen again. Vanishing Head. While taking a quiet stroll through the Churchyard in Ishult, UK, a man was admiring the old gravestones and the peaceful surroundings. That's when he noticed something strange. A pale, ghostly head peeking from behind a wall. Intrigued, he stepped closer, but it vanished, leaving no trace or clue. It was as if the spirit had simply dissolved into the air. Even in a place meant for prayer, the sight was a chilling reminder that some ghosts move silently, appearing and disappearing at will. That day, the man realized the quiet churchyard held more than memories. It might still be home to spirits wandering freely, unseen by most. Prayer possession. During prayer in a mosque in Palestine, a boy suddenly collapsed to the ground. Those nearby quickly stopped their prayers to check on him, but it wasn't a typical medical emergency. Witnesses say it seemed as if something had taken over him mid-prayer. His movements were strange, almost unnatural. It looked like the prayer triggered something dark inside him, a force no one could explain. The incident left everyone in shock, questioning how a place of peace could suddenly become the stage for something so unsettling. Last Signal. No one expected this during a final burial ceremony. As mourners gathered for the last goodbye, the camera focused on the small glass window of the coffin lid and captured something shocking. Inside, a pale hand pressed against the glass and moved slowly. Some suggested it was just a cadaveric spasm, a natural muscle contraction after demise, but the family saw it differently. They believe the soul had not yet left the body and used its remaining energy to give one final sign to the mother. Until the earth fully covered the coffin, the person was still there, alive in spirit. Silent Ward. In a hospital, the patients woke up and noticed something was wrong. The halls were quiet. There were no nurses, no doctors, and no sounds anywhere. As they walked around to find help, their worry grew. When they reached the upper floor, they saw a nurse standing behind a half-open door, watching them. But when they moved closer, she disappeared. They kept searching and soon saw her again, slipping into a dark corridor. They followed, but before they could reach her, the video stopped. Was this truly a hospital, or had they unknowingly stepped into a place where the living don't belong? Haunted Ward. This CCTV came again from a hospital late at night, and it felt like the place had become home to strange activity. First, the board on the wall suddenly crashed to the floor. Then, a chair slid across the room. It didn't stop there. The file cupboard opened by itself. The movements looked terrifying, like some evil spirit was there. After this, the same thing kept happening at night. again and again. The whole wing was cleared, and the patients were moved to another area. Some places don't push spirits out. The spirits make us leave instead. Graveyard laughter. A security guard was on his very first night shift when he heard a child laughing. He thought maybe a kid was left by mistake in the security room, so he went to check. Through the glass, he saw small hands hitting the window and laughing again and again. But the moment he opened the door, the room was empty. Things took a turn when the truth was revealed to him, that the hospital staff told him that this wing was built over an old graveyard, and people said jinns stayed there. After that night, even when he heard sounds or laughter, the guard never went near that room again. Living light.
He just moved forward to what God had told him to do.
On January 12th, 2016, at a construction conference in Lee City, Missouri, people gathered to listen to the speaker. A few minutes after the talk began, a strange sight showed up on one attendee's camera. Around the light bulb above the speaker's head, a soft, glowing shape slowly formed. No one in the room saw it with their own eyes. It was only visible through the camera.
And Moses just simply did what God said to do. He just simply did what God said.
When the recording was watched later, the light looked like it had taken a shape of its own, almost like it was alive. Many people saw this as a sign, a quiet reminder of guidance and protection, watching from above.
Jeremiah 9:23, praise the Lord.
Dark spirit.
Dalam keadaan gue sendiri di hutan ini dikelilingi oleh.
A YouTuber traveled to Thailand to explore a long, abandoned temple. People said this temple held dark stories. It was rumored that some statues inside were made from real human bodies. The statues' skin, faces, and hands looked like real people standing still. It felt as if they could start moving at any moment. Then things became even scarier. On camera, the eyes of a statue looked like they were slowly shifting, as if they were watching him. It was as if a dark spirit was trapped inside them, bound to something far more sinister. A force hidden for years, meant never to be seen.
Berilah aku tanda kalau kalian ada.
Shadow sprint. This CCTV footage came from a hospital in 2014 when the attendants for patients were sleeping in the hallway. Then, out of nowhere, a dark shadow appeared on the screen. It moved across the hallway very fast and then disappeared as quickly as it came. When the video spread online, people looked at it again and again. To some, it could have been a ghost. Others said it looked like the Grim Reaper, who was there to take someone's soul. Which theory will you buy? Shadow trolley. In a hospital, 2 nurses were outside one of the theater rooms late at night. Everything felt normal, until a dark shadow suddenly passed by the small window on the door. The nurse who was recording froze in fear. She gathered courage and went inside the room to check. No one was there. Then, a trolley slowly rolled across the floor on its own. It was as if the unseen figure wanted to show that it was still there. Afterward, people in the hospital whispered that it was the devil who came to take a soul. Returned watcher. A Vatican church in Rome, Italy had stayed abandoned for years because people believed it was haunted. But recently, it was finally opened again for the public. On the very first day, a visitor started recording the building just to capture how it looked inside. While filming, he zoomed in toward the roof, and that's when he saw it. A dark, shadowy figure standing high above. Before he could focus more, his hands shook and the phone slipped for a second. When he lifted the camera back up, the figure was gone. People say this may be the same ghost that once forced the church to shut down, and maybe it never left at all. Living statue.
El canto de salida, con alegría, con...
This strange event took place in Mexico in 2018. The church was silent, and the priest was deep in prayer when something unreal happened. As everyone watched, the hand of the Jesus statue slowly moved, almost like it was alive. For a moment, it looked as if Jesus itself had entered the statue and was giving a silent sign of his presence. The church that day didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt mysterious, powerful, and terrifying at the same time. Some called it a miracle. Others believed something far beyond human understanding was standing inside that statue. Endless corridor. A team of explorers went inside an abandoned hospital for their project. The place was dark and silent. As they walked down the long hallway, they saw something strange. Someone in a patient gown was slowly pushing a wheelchair. They ran toward the figure, but when they reached the spot, no one was there. Only the empty wheelchair stood in the middle of the hall. A few seconds later, the same shadowy figure appeared again at the far end of the gallery, watching them. Then the camera suddenly shook, the screen glitched, and the video ended. No one ever knew what happened next, and whether they made it out. Soul drift. The CCTV camera inside the hospital recorded a scene that felt wrong from the very first frame. The room was giving off a haunting vibe, and then fear appeared right before their eyes. A white, transparent smoke slowly appeared in the air. It drifted with a strange calm, floating near the bed. That was the same bed where a man had passed only moments earlier. Even with the windows closed, there was no explanation. It seemed like the soul was about to depart for its final journey, and CCTV was witnessing its last moments in this world. Hospital Phantom. A woman had been admitted to a hospital and was calmly recording her dimly lit room. As she glanced around, she noticed a pale figure in the corner of the darkness. Uneasy, she called her friend to turn on the lights. When the room lit up, nothing was there, but she thought it might just be her tired eyes playing tricks. Later, curiosity got the better of her, and she replayed the video. That's when the figure became clear. A humanoid wrapped entirely in white, standing unnaturally, resembling a pocong from Indonesian and Malaysian folklore. It seemed the hospital room was haunted. Well, could be, as how many people would have ended their lives in that room? Haunted caretaker. A man was seen on CCTV talking to someone, pointing toward a room as if giving directions. At first, staff assumed he might be confused or having a medical issue, but when they reviewed the footage carefully, everything changed. The person he was speaking to appeared as an old lady. Her appearance matched exactly an elderly worker who had passed away years earlier. Later, one of the colleagues revealed the spirit was tied to the hospital, and even rituals didn't make her move out. Hallway spirit. A night guard was patrolling the floor alone when he claimed he saw an old lady standing near the hallway. The CCTV footage showed the guard waving into the dark, as if greeting someone no one else could see. He walked over and opened the door for what he described as a lost old lady, then waited beside the elevator while talking to her. But the camera showed only him, standing and speaking in the air. Moments later, he received a call informing him he was the only person on that floor. The realization hit him so hard that he ran out of the building in panic. It looked like he had encountered some evil spirit or witch that night. Well, he was lucky to escape not having the same destiny. Roadside nurse. A man was driving home late at night when he noticed a nurse standing by the roadside, her uniform crisp and mask slightly slipping. She raised her hand, signaling for a ride, but there was no hospital nearby. No lights, nothing to explain her presence. He didn't stop, uneasy, as a chilling thought crossed his mind. The figure might not be real. For a moment, it felt as if a ghost had taken the shape of a human, luring him into the darkness. He drove on, never looking back, and later learned no one had been reported near that road that night. Silent pilgrim. A church CCTV caught something that made everyone pause. At first, it looked empty, silent and ordinary. Then, a faint gray figure appeared near the holy icons. It was clearly a woman, almost transparent, moving with purpose, venerating the saints as if she could feel them. Her motions weren't random. They were deliberate, like she had a mission. Some think these could be interdimensional pilgrims, souls returning to receive one last blessing from Jesus. Let me know what you think. Bell Shadow. Outside the Vatican Church in Rome, a visitor was recording the view along with many other people. Everything seemed normal, until he zoomed his camera toward the ringing bells. That's when things turned terrifying. Among the bells, he spotted a dark, ghost-like figure standing on the edge of the church, as if it was about to jump. One of the church caretakers later explained that many years ago, a man had taken his own life from that same spot. He said this dark figure could be the spirit of that same person, still standing there after all this time. The sight of that shadow on the Vatican made the whole place feel heavy, like the past was still alive.
Yeah, but not now.
Corridor Ghost. In a hospital, a man managed to capture a creepy lady on camera who seemed almost like a ghost. She had messy long hair and wore a white patient dress, moving slowly down the corridor. Her movements were eerie, giving the impression of a spirit rather than a living person. Later, the man claimed that neither he nor any hospital staff ever saw her again, and no one recognized her presence, leaving the footage as a chilling, unexplained mystery. Haunted elevator. CCTV footage from inside an elevator shocked everyone in the building. A woman inside suddenly looked up and screamed. Her expression frozen in fear, as if something huge or supernatural was towering above her, moving upward. Moments later, the elevator stopped working and was abandoned. Since then, people have been calling it the haunted elevator, avoiding it whenever possible, leaving the footage as the only chilling proof of what might have lurked inside. Yard apparition. A man had been noticing unusual activity in his backyard, so he decided to install a CCTV camera to see what was happening. The footage revealed something no one could explain. A streak of ghostly light appeared suddenly, drifting across the yard as if carried by an invisible force. Its movement wasn't like a person walking. It floated stiffly, yet somehow formed the faint outline of an adult human. The house belonged to his grandfather, who loved this backyard dearly. So, for a few unsettling seconds, it seemed possible that the spirit of his grandfather was still watching over the place before vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Silent orbs. The family placed a CCTV camera in the room where their grandmother was resting because she had been very sick. Late at night, the camera recorded strange white orbs moving gently through the air. At the same time, the grandmother said she could feel someone walking around her bed, even though no one was there. The orbs kept appearing, floating quietly across the room. A few days later, the grandmother passed away. Some people felt the orbs were something supernatural, maybe angels who had come to guide her. It seemed the room had been visited by something beyond this world, and no one would ever forget it. White Mourner. In a small village near the graveyard, people often said they saw a woman in white roaming and crying after midnight. Many believed she waited for someone to answer her. One night, the truth showed up on CCTV. The camera didn't just record the empty street. It showed her. A lady in white appeared, walking slowly, with her hair covering her face. Anyone who saw the footage knew right away she was not human. Locals said she was the ghost of a woman who never found peace. They believed that if anyone spoke to her at night, they never came back home. Instead, they stayed with her in the graveyard forever. Restless stretcher. In the corridor of the provincial hospital of Rosario, Argentina, a strange scene was caught on CCTV. A stretcher slowly began to move on its own. It rolled forward, then backward, and then tipped over, as if an invisible being was playing with it. The stretcher belonged to a paranormal presence. It was the same one on which an elderly man had passed away due to the negligence of the hospital staff. Now it seems his ghost still wanders the halls, restless, moving the stretcher as if seeking revenge for the life that was taken from him. It's time for today's open discussion. A somber funeral service in Vietnam took a shocking turn that left everyone frozen. As mourners gathered around the casket, a black cat suddenly appeared and jumped directly over it. In local tradition, such a sight is said to bring dark energy to the deceased. Moments later, the coffin lid jerked violently, as if something inside had pushed it open with unnatural force. The footage ends in total chaos as the grieving families panicked and rushed for the exits to escape the rising entity. This incident serves as a grim warning that ancient superstitions often carry a terrifying weight in the physical world.